Hi, I'm Mitch Warner, Managing Partner of the Arbinger Institute, and I'd like to take a few minutes today to talk to you about how you can solve some of the most intractable, long-standing issues that you face within your organization. How you can get your arms around those and begin to make significant changes. And to do that, I'd like to talk for a minute about mindset. So why does mindset matter in the first place? Well, if you look at the current level of results that you're achieving in your organization, let's say that represents that current level today. Well, if you want to change those results, you'll typically look at a set of behaviors. How are people acting? What are people doing in the organization that add up to that current level of results? We all know that behavior drives results. And we often feel equipped to some degree to begin thinking about and shifting those behaviors. What we often don't feel equipped to do as well is to shift that level, that thing that drives all of the behaviors in an organization. And we call that mindset. How a person sees their challenges, their opportunities, other people, themselves. If we can begin to shift mindset, that thing that drives behaviors, then we can more easily and sustainably shift the behaviors that drive our results. So, for example, if we wanted to achieve a new level of result, a desired result, let's say we have some higher goal in an organization. Well, how do we get here? Well, the typical way is to simply prescribe all the behaviors necessary to achieve that new result. And we take people that have accomplished great things, for example, that have achieved the results that we want to achieve, and we look at what they do. We look at their behaviors and we say, well, if we can just behave like that, either as an individual or as a collective team or even as an enterprise, then we'll achieve that goal. And so we prescribe all of those behaviors. We try to get people to do certain things that we know in our mind will add up to a new result, a better result. The challenge is that those behaviors won't stick if the mindset remains where it was. In fact, a recent study by McKinsey said that organizations that identify and address pervasive mindsets at the outset are four times more likely to succeed in organizational change efforts than are companies that overlook that stage, this stage at the level of mindset. So if the behaviors shift back to where the mindset resides, then how do we get here as an organization? How do you affect real change, lasting change in an organization? Well, it's by first addressing the foundational underlying mindsets that drive all the behaviors in the organization. And so real change efforts that stick look more like this. As the mindset shifts, the behaviors come along with it. We shift mindset and the behavior comes along. In fact, what we found is that if you can shift mindset, then the work that you've been doing to try to prescribe and get people to adopt certain behaviors won't have to happen to the same degree anymore. If you do need to prescribe particular behaviors across an organization, if you can shift the mindset first, then those are adopted without resistance. But for the most part, when you can shift mindset, the behaviors that should be happening will happen spontaneously. They'll be happening naturally. They'll be happening in response to the needs within the organization rather than having to be prescribed. Think of mindset as two ways to approach any particular challenge or opportunity that you're facing. On the one hand, we have an outward mindset where we're focused on results, where all of our energies and efforts are focused on achieving the particular mission or objective that we have. And we're going to call that an outward mindset, a focus on the needs and objectives of others, the organization as a whole. Well, we contrast that with an inward mindset, where I'm really focused on myself. How does this make me look? What does this mean for me? How will this get in the way of me accomplishing my own individual objectives? And we're going to call that an inward mindset. Approaching problems from one of these two mindsets, apart from any behavior we might be able to get someone to adopt, will be the fundamental factor as to whether or not we're successful. To illustrate this, I'd like to introduce you to a woman named Louise Francisconi, a client of ours. Louise was the president of a very large division at Hughes, which was acquired by the much smaller Raytheon. And shortly after the acquisition, she and this newly formed leadership team of about 13 or 14 vice presidents were charged to cut $100 million from the business, and they were given 30 days to do it. Well, you can imagine if you're part of this leadership team and you've been given a behavioral mandate to figure out what you're going to do to help this newly formed organization cut $100 million and how you come into that meeting. Well, of course, people are coming in defensive, territorial. Maybe there's cuts, but they're not going to come from me. I might say all the right things in that meeting, but at the end of the day, my mindset is fundamentally inward. And we've all been there. We get that. We know what that's like. Well, how do you get to $100 million? How do you cut $100 million? In 30 days, no less. Well, I'm going to have Louise tell you that story. I want you to watch for inward mindset and outward mindset. The approach this team of vice presidents initially took, and what happened, how a shift to an outward mindset was able to be effected.
We had to cut $100 million from the business, and we had like 30 days to tell corporate how we were going to do it. And that's a lot of money, okay? It was a huge amount of money. I set up the meeting in what I thought was a good way to do it, and asked each person to focus on what they were going to do to contribute to the success of cutting $100 million. And I framed it, I thought, right. Everybody worked on it. We spent a whole day together. And the first morning or first day, we said, everybody stands up and briefs, and they all briefed what they were going to do. And it was painful. I mean, you realized you weren't going to make this happen. So we got to a point halfway through the day, and there was a person from Arbinger there who said, Louise, would you mind if I stepped in and helped maybe shape this meeting a little differently? I said, please, help yourself. And so he said, I'd like you each to pair up. I don't care who you pair up with. You know, I always get hung up on, well, you know, these people should go with these people. He said, no, no, no. He's just pick a person, just turn around, pair up with the person next to you. And he said, we're going to spend 2 hours. Now, out of an 8-hour day, that's a lot of time. So, you know, I'm starting to break a sweat at this point. He said, we're going to spend 2 hours, and I want you, as an example, Louise, to spend an hour saying all the things that you really need help with to really cut money. What are the things that you're working on? And the other person did the same thing. We did that for an hour, and then for the second hour, he said, now I want each of you to ask the other person and think about what you could do out of the resources you have that would help the other person save money. Not cut their money, save their money. And it was like magic. It was magic, because at the end of the day, we cut over $100 million, and not one person felt that they had sacrificed. Because instead, I was thinking about the things that I could do to help you cut. You were thinking of the things you could do to help me cut. What could you do different that could help me do? It radically reshaped the business. And that totally changed. Check, we got the business results right away. But it radically changed the way we started to interface as a team, because it really taught us the power of listening to the other person and understanding how what you can truly do to make the other person successful.
What'd you see as you watched that story, as you watched Louise bring her team together in that way? Did you see the shift from an inward mindset to an outward mindset? Notice that that shift was able to happen not by mandating particular behaviors, but just by awakening people to the needs of the people around them. Once they were attuned to what the needs were of these various groups, they could no longer be the same. The shift from an inward mindset to an outward mindset was almost irresistible. And when that happened, then all of the behaviors that they needed to engage in became spontaneous, automatic. In fact, one of the first things that happened in that room that got to the first 7 million of cuts was that one of the leaders, as they talked to one of the other leaders, realized that much of their division was redundant to their colleagues' division. They said, if we simply rolled our division under your division, we could get rid of all sorts of redundancies and equipment and overhead and other costs that wouldn't require us to lay off a single employee, but would make a huge difference to our bottom line. That's the power of a shift from an inward mindset to an outward mindset. that if you can affect in your organization will enable all of the right behaviors to start happening. As you think about your own organization, you might begin by just thinking about where do you sit as an organization or as a team on the mindset continuum, from an inward mindset where we're focused on our own needs and our own objectives, as opposed to people that are fully outward, thinking about the mission, the objective at hand. You might rate yourself that way. You can also go to our website online to arbinger.com, and you'll find there a mindset audit, a series of 10 simple questions that will enable you to rate your own mindset on this continuum. So let's take a deeper look at this inward and outward mindset in the workplace. From an inward mindset, there are others that I'm surrounded by, but they don't really matter the way I matter. All of my objectives and behaviors, all the activities I engage in are self-focused because while other people have needs and objectives and challenges, things they're working on, I don't really see them from an inward mindset because I'm so focused on what I'm trying to accomplish. To the degree that I'm inward, other people are essentially objects to me, not really people. Not people that have needs and objectives and challenges like I have. And I might see them as objects in one of three ways. I might see them as vehicles, just people that I can use to accomplish my own objectives. I might see them as obstacles in my way that are getting in the way of me accomplishing what I want to accomplish. And so I might blame them for how difficult my work is. Or I may not even see them at all. They might simply be irrelevant to me, right? Just part of the scenery. You might ask yourself, are there people in my organization today that see themselves just as vehicles to be used or obstacles in other people's way? Or are there people that may not even feel seen at all, just part of the scenery? That's an important question to ask. From an outward mindset, on the other hand, other people matter like I matter, which means other people are people to me with needs and objectives and challenges that are as real as mine. And I see that from an outward mindset. I'm aware of that. I'm alive to that. And so all the things that I do, all my objectives and my behaviors and my activities will take what other people are trying to do in account. And so what I do is always calibrated from an outward mindset to be more helpful to what other people are trying to accomplish. Because I see that. I'm aware of it. I'm alive to it. I want to do my work in a way that helps other people accomplish their objectives. So from an inward mindset, I simply focus on my results. From an outward mindset, I'm focused on our results as an entire team, as an entire organization. Your work as a leader, if you want to achieve better results for the organization, is to help people change their behaviors to accomplish a new result by shifting their mindset from inward to outward. Really, it's a three-step process, and it's very simple. If the problem that you're facing right now is an inward mindset, the first step is really mindset change to help people, just like Louise did in that meeting, to shift from an inward mindset to an outward mindset, to become alive to the needs and objectives of others. And as a leader, you can do that. You can provide the space. You can provide the opportunity, institution-wide, to help people begin to see their objectives in terms of other people's objectives. The next step, once you've shifted mindset, is to help people engage in the behaviors that naturally flow out of a change in mindset. Lastly, as a leader, you'll need to change the systems in your organization that reinforce and invite an outward mindset way of working. How we meet with other people, how we manage performance, the policies and procedures that we have, the incentives, the things we measure, all of those have to be rethought from an outward mindset so that when people in your organization make the shift from an inward to an outward mindset and begin behaving in outward mindset ways, that the organization itself, the way it's set up, the structures, the policies and procedures all continue to reinforce an outward way of working. Your work as a leader, if you want to help people get better results in the organization, is to help people shift from an inward mindset to an outward mindset. And to do that, you simply need to create the opportunity for people to begin seeing their impact on other people throughout the organization. Help people measure the impact that they're having on others in the organization. Help people become alive to the reality of other people. What life is like for those that are on the receiving end of me and my work. I'd like to end today by introducing you to a man named Brian Moose, who at the time was the senior creative director at Citrix. At the time of this story, he had been involved in a long-standing conflict with another work team, headed up by a colleague that he was constantly at odds with. These are the kind of challenges that you face in helping people in the workplace, the kind of challenges that he faced at work. As you watch this story, notice how, apart from anything that could have been prescribed as a behavior, when Brian was simply awakened to the need, the reality of this other colleague and his work team as people, a new approach occurred to him that was effective not because of what he did as much as the way he saw the people while he was doing it.
We're given assignments to process in class, and we took a break, and I thought, you know what, this is kind of hard, but if I don't do something right now, why bother? So part of making things better was to evaluate myself if I had an issue with another person or in a project, to take a look at what my part was in this. And there was a project that I was working with somebody on that an email had just come through, and we'd been negotiating this project. They said they were going to do something that I didn't want to happen. I disagreed with this. This person had a team that I'd also been working with, and I'd found out later that they were fully expecting me to come into the office guns blazing, and they were battening down the hatches. Not that I'm that kind of person, but they were expecting something to happen. It was lunchtime, it was our lunch break. I thought, okay, I'm going to take care of some business right now and apply what I've learned immediately. He was in a conference room, and it happened to be he was having lunch with his staff. I was expecting, a private conversation. So I thought, I looked at him and I thought, I'm just going to do this right now with the people in the room. And I sat down and said, you know what? I have something I want to talk to you about. And I could feel them cringe. I could see out of the corner of my eye, see their shoulders go up to their ears. They said, you know what? We've been working on this stuff for a long time, and I know it's been difficult, but I want to tell you what I think my part has been in this problem, that I haven't been thinking about what you have to take care of, the responsibilities that you have, the burden that you have to deal with, the other people that you have to make happy. It's a big organization, you have a big responsibility, and I think I've been a pain in the ass for you guys. Frankly, I want to apologize for my behavior, and I just want to move forward here, but I do understand that my behavior has been difficult. He looked at me and he goes, wow, thanks. He goes, I have a part in this too. And anyway, about the project. And so we talked about the project and the changes he wanted to make, and I said, you know what, I'm fine with it, I'll trust you on that. And he got up, left, his staff got up and left, except for one woman. And she sat there and turned to me, and her jaw was just hanging, and she said, you know what, I have never seen anything like that in all my years of being in a corporation. She goes, that was fantastic. She goes, it was just inspirational to me to hear somebody say that. I was like, seriously? He goes, no. She goes, really, that's really rare. Thank you for doing that. Fast forward, I think it was the next week that I had a long-standing request with this group to do something. And a little out of the ordinary. I knew that to do this thing, it would require paperwork and writing a report, and it would cost money, and it was going to take some effort. But I'd asked this group to help me do this. So one of the people in this group, he contacted me and he goes, "Hey Brian, that project we've been talking about? So why don't I come over and we'll talk about it?" And so he goes, "Let's walk around. We'll see where we can do this thing." And spent time with me and really listened to me. And he goes, "And by the way, that report, the request that needs to be written, I'll take care of it." So and so he went and wrote the report and filed it, sent me a copy, and had me approve it. I didn't have to do a thing. The week before, what happened? Did that make a difference? I don't know. I'd like to think so, but I feel like the attitude of staff changed to me too. For me, it was talking to the person about my part in what I perceived as our problem, and for me to have a self-evaluation and talk to them about what I had discovered about myself. What I cared about was my being able to analyze myself and be able to share it with somebody else.
As you can see in Brian's example, when you can shift mindset, the behavioral solutions to problems, even long-standing issues and deep-seated conflicts, can be overcome very simply by operating from an outward mindset. Thank you so much for investing your time to learn more about the outward mindset. We hope it's been helpful to you and it can begin to help you unlock some of your most persistent challenges.